All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever time you're listening to this. For me, it's Wednesday morning. Typically, I try to get this done on Tuesday morning. I had a few other things come up, so I'm just getting this done a little bit later than usual, but hopefully most of you are afternoon listeners on Wednesday and not looking for it on Wednesday morning because it ain't there right now. It's the hardest thing right now is to get in a exact routine. And that's another thing we have talked before about having my daughter back on because of the mess up and not having the mic recording the last time she was on. So, but to do that on a Monday or a Tuesday, soccer and gymnastics, it's kind of difficult. Summertime will probably be a little bit easier, but I really don't want to move the day either. Wednesday night and releasing Thursday morning would be great for having, her on, but for the rest of the time, Wednesday is fine with me and recording on Tuesday. Anyway, good morning or whatever time you're listening. Got a couple things to cover today. We have been doing some thinking over the last few days and just kind of had this thought in my head, which is going to be the title to this episode 13. Not everything is an emergency. Starting to realize that. Not everything has to be an emergency. You can have a sense of urgency, but not everything has to be an emergency. Also, I want to talk about having duty and purpose. Like, what is your duty in life? Obviously, raise kids. That's a duty. That's a responsibility. That's a purpose that a lot of us have, or just being responsible in general, But having a purpose and being responsible for something maybe a little bit bigger than you can also be good for you too. So that's something else we're going to talk about today. Let's get into it, shall we? Cheers. All right, so having duty. This is actually the first thing that I thought of about talking about today. This was going to be my only topic, but then yesterday I had the same thought, and I kept repeating it to myself that not everything is an emergency. So we're going to start with this other one. Having duty or purpose or being responsible for the success or failure of something gives me purpose and makes a life worthwhile, living a life worthwhile. And it's important to do that because you need purpose. And I think that has come about in my most recent job, being the general manager of the new Texas Corner Tavern in Salem. So if you haven't been, you should come check it out. We got really good wings, especially on Wednesdays. And we'll have every ball game that you can imagine. No free ads, though. They do pay me. But it's just been one of those things where I always felt like I could be a leader or be in charge or help motivate people in that type of setting. Not necessarily just the bar, but just in general. If you're like, hey, I want you to be a sales manager or a marketing manager or, whatever, or general manager, anything like that, I felt like I had the ability to do that. But I feel like I am finding that maybe I lead a little bit more by example, but I'm trying to be a little bit more vocal too. So anyway, leadership styles aside, just having duty and having a purpose and being responsible for the success of something, it depends on how you look at it. It can be a daunting task and it can be stressful. And there are stressful times. There are times where, just recently, just this week, I wondered am I doing a good job, And I think some of that stems from my last working relationship, where I don't necessarily work for pats on the back, but boy, it's nice to have them, And at my last job, it was kind of like you do something pretty big and something you were super proud of, and it never got celebrated. And it just seemed like everybody was like, oh, okay, good. We got that done. Let's move on to the next thing. And that's kind of where it leads into not everything has to be an emergency, but sticking with, duty and responsibility and purpose there are stressful things, especially whenever you are responsible and you are in charge, and it can be kind of scary. And I'm dealing with that, and I'm trying to realize that I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I know that I can justify everything that I've done and every moment or minute or hour or day or anything that I have spent doing that job. So I have to go back and look at it and be like, okay, you might be thinking from your perspective, because you're always questioning yourself on whether or not you're doing a good job, but people from the outside in might be thinking, wow, this guy's really just killing it right now. We're loving what he's doing. And again, you don't need people to say that to you, but you would like to hear it, or you'd like to see it. And I think last week we had our first live music event, and the place was packed, and I felt like in that moment it felt more like, okay, I think I'm doing okay. I think I'm doing my job, and I think I'm doing a good job at my job. Because you can do your job and just kind of float by, but you want to be really good at it, because you always want to be good at everything you do. I think we talked about this last week. It's like you have to live your life, and you have to show people around you that if you don't strive for better or strive for greatness, then you're just going to be stuck in the same place. And it can be a blessing to work harder for something else and to work harder for something better. Something I'm trying to teach my children, because if we don't teach our kids to be better than us in all aspects of life, then we're going to fail and we're going to have all kinds of issues. And you see that every day with parents. It's hard being a good parent. It's hard work being a good parent. It's easy to be a shitty parent, that's for sure. So that's something that I think about whenever I'm trying to work and trying to do good or do well at my job, or anything I do for that matter, for this right here. Sometimes I feel like with this show, I haven't had the time to put as much effort into it, and I'm definitely slacking in some areas, posting clips, promoting the show a little bit better. But hopefully I can get a little bit better at that as I get a little bit more used to my new schedule and the new life that we're living. And having a great staff also helps to give you that freedom to do that sort of thing. So yeah, having duty or purpose or being responsible for the success or failure of something gives me purpose, and it makes a life worth living. And that's what we're all striving to be. We have to find our peace, because if we don't find our peace, then we don't find that higher power, and in the end, we don't find happiness. And I'm trying, again, like I said last week, I'm trying to look at everything as an opportunity, not as a mistake or as a problem, more so like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to be better about doing this. And that can be an issue. And you can feel like you're running around putting out fires, and you feel like you're scatterbrained, even though you're just trying to get one thing done at a time. So I've always kind of focused on a couple of things, especially here recently, but I've always kind of been a one thing at a time kind of guy, because you really can't do multiple things. You kind of have to focus on one task and get it done. When I clean the house, I start in one corner of the kitchen usually, and I work my way around and out of that room, top to bottom. I clean top to bottom. And so when I'm doing a task, it's like, okay, I know today I've got to get A, B, and C done if possible. So let's just start with A. And anything that sidetracks me from that, that's fine. It happens, but I have to focus on A. I can't go from A, sidetrack to something else, and then try to start B, and then go back to A. You can't do that. And I think sometimes you start focusing on 3 tasks when you should be focusing on 1, and then you get into this kind of panic mode. And then you go to my next topic, which is that not everything is an emergency. It feels like that. You can have a sense of urgency when doing things, but not everything is an emergency that needs to be done right that second. You can slowly get into things sometimes. And sometimes slowly getting into things can make you do them better, or even faster for that matter. The guy who goes to shovel and dig a hole, if he works at a steady pace, he can dig all day. But then if the guy next to him is going 100 miles an hour the entire time, he's going to be dead by lunch, So not everything has to be an emergency. Sometimes I find myself, I'm like, yesterday, I had to take a trailer somewhere and drop it off, return it. I had to run by somewhere and get a check and then come back and basically use that check to pay for something. And I felt myself like going, okay, if I go here and then I go there, and I was driving and I was going way too fast, and I said, hold up. I'm not going to save myself that much time by flipping out and driving super fast and potentially getting there in a wreck or get a ticket or something or anything like that. So not everything has to be an emergency. Now, that's not to say that, because there's some people that you say that to and they're like, oh, well then I'll just take my sweet time getting where I need to go. Like, well, no, that's not what you need to do. Like I said, you got to have a sense of urgency in what you do every day. Had a basketball coach, shout out Coach Gary Shirley, Hall of Famer, rest in peace. But his thing was always sense of urgency here. Let's get into this drill. Sense of urgency. It's like, you're not hurrying. Be quick, but don't hurry. That was actually John Wooden. But you want to be quick, but you don't want to hurry because you don't want to mess anything up. And you also don't want to raise your own stress levels while you're trying to do something, because that's going to make you mess up too. So sense of urgency, be quick, but don't hurry. And that's kind of how I've tried to calm the nervous system and get into things. And I've noticed that when I think that way, or whenever I'm able to pull myself back into that, especially in moments of high stress, like last Saturday, I was helping out behind the bar and helping bartend, and somebody out of nowhere asked for a White Russian. And I hadn't made a White Russian in, I don't know, a while. So it was like, I know it's Kahlua, I know it's whipping cream, but is it, and I'm sitting there thinking. So I took a second. All right, hold on. I got to run to the cooler. Ran to the cooler. All right, here we go. Went back out, made it. Didn't quite make it right the first time. So I kind of doctored it, gave it back to them. They loved it. They ended up having another one. So if you find yourself in those moments feeling like, I find it all the time, especially when I'm cooking or something, I tend to you're going. And I think it comes from, and this is not a bad thing, but I think it comes from either just the way we were raised or just our mentality and our, if you're a hardworking type person, you tend to be like, let's get after it. Let's get going, and you get into it and you start going and you get going at this quick pace, but that's not always the best way to go about it. Again, you can be quick, but don't hurry. You can have a sense of urgency, but not everything is an emergency. So I'm finding myself here recently, even whenever I'm making lunch for the 7-year-old and almost 7-year-old, I'll be cutting something up or packaging something. I'm fumbling with it, and because I know that we've got to leave in 30 minutes, and it's like, well, 30 minutes. By the time I get this done, it'll be 5 minutes from now, even if I slow way down. Excuse me while I get a drink real quick. How do you take your coffee? I've tried here recently. I went sugar-free creamer, and it all depended on how I slept. If I slept terribly, I went straight black and just tried to get as much rocket fuel in me as possible. But here recently, I kind of prefer it. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm either one or the other. I'm either straight black, nothing in it, or iced latte with, milk and all the things in it too. But here lately, I don't really like the creamer in hot coffee. If you're going to give me hot coffee, I'll take it black. If you're going to give me creamer in my coffee, I'll just take it iced. So I'm one end of the spectrum to the other, but that's probably my life in my brain. As we go on this tangent of coffee, getting back to not everything is emergency. I think I've pretty well covered what I want to cover with that and with all the other topics. But, if there's anything that you all want me to talk about, I feel like everybody says this every time, and then nobody ever says, oh, you should talk about this, you should talk about this, except for mom and dad, which shout out to them. They're always listening, they're always watching, and they're always giving ideas. And, clap it up for supportive parents. That's what we want to have. But, just another mix of, some different people and some things you want to hear discussed. Should I talk about the war on Iran right now? Maybe we'll save that for next week. Go out there, live your best life, make your own way in doing so, because you only have one life to live. So you might as well make your own way, because in the end, all you have whenever you leave this world is a name, and the name is what you make it. And my name is Big Jake. Thanks for watching. Cheers.